Okay, we're back again with the 92 Toyota Camry. I've only done a couple videos on this car since we got it, because there was really not much to have to do on this thing. These things are pretty reliable. But as the title states, we're going to be replacing the clock spring / turn signal switch assembly in this steering column. Our front turn signal lights do not work, and this thing had actually fired off the airbag spontaneously a long time ago on the previous owner. All those things are routed through this assembly here. But first thing that we would have to do is disconnect our battery, which I'm not going to go into detail because anybody doing their own automotive work knows how to remove a single nut to remove a battery terminal. But with that all said and done, we can now look at our steering column. Okay, the first thing we need to do is remove our airbag assembly. That's a simple endeavor. There's a couple of access covers that can be removed either with your fingernail, as is the case with this one, or the other one right here covering our cruise control switch. I'll use a screwdriver for that one. But once you remove those, there's a couple of star bit bolts right here that have to be removed. This one was left out apparently because this airbag was actually replaced after the other one had went off. But remove the two bolts here. There should be one on that side as well. But once we get the bolts out, we'll be able to remove the airbag assembly. This airbag assembly was not plugged back in for obvious reasons, but unplug yours. The wiring harness is not so hard to unplug, just simple little snap connector. But once you get your airbag out, you could then look at the steering column itself and removing the steering wheel. Looking at our steering wheel, there's a single nut that has to come off. It's a 19 millimeter. Now, I'm actually going to use the ratchet just because I'd rather show how easy it is without using an impact to get that nut off. But once the nut is removed, the next thing is pulling the steering wheel completely off. There's two treads, two bolt holes here, as we could see. You'll have to put a steering wheel puller on there, which, give me a quick second. And here we are. We have our steering wheel puller in place. Most steering wheel pullers should have multiple sets of bolts to coincide with the different treads on different makes of cars. But with this all said and done, the next thing is to remove the wiring harness plug right here, which there's a tab underneath that you would just push up with a screwdriver. And then, get my hand in here, yeah, pop that plug out. So that's all free and clear. This wire right here goes to the airbag, and it was cut by the previous owner, but it's a longer pigtail that would plug directly into the airbag, so obviously this would already have been disconnected when the airbag was removed. But with that, I could go ahead and put our ratchet on our steering wheel puller and tighten this thing down and pop our steering wheel free. With our steering wheel removed, the next thing we need to do is pop off our little cover pair right here, as well as this panel right here. This panel is going to have to come off in order to access the rest of the wire harness plugs underneath. So these covers right here are just held on by simple screws underneath. There should be 3 of them all together that have to come off. So with our covers fully removed, I can now turn my attention to our panel underneath. With our 2 covers removed from our steering column assembly, exposing everything, we could see the wiring harness plugs in there that we need to remove. Our main panel right here has 4 bolts that have to come out. There's one right there under that cover, one under that cover. There's one, let me get this thing. There's one underneath right there that has to come out, but apparently it's not even in there. And there's another one right here that has to come out. We also have to remove the couple of screws right here to pull this little assembly out as well to get everything out. The bolts are 10 millimeter underneath and 10 millimeters on the top. But once we get all our bolts out, we get our little screws out and remove our little storage tray assembly as well, we could pop our main cover out and get to the wiring underneath that has to be disconnected for our Clockspring assembly. With our cover removed safely without breaking anything, we have all our wiring exposed. There's 3 wires that have to come loose. The first one is this yellow one right here. Now there's 2 tabs, one on either side, that have to be held open, and then this little flip top cover is opened up, and then there's a little button right here that you have to press in order to separate that wire right there. Then there's this white clip right here that hooks into these points right here, and you have to use a screwdriver to pry these free. Let me see. It would be like that. Once you pry them free, you could pop that loose. Then this black assembly right here that makes up the thing also has to be popped loose in order to get to the actual plugs on this thing. So try to get this where I could do it, or at least show it. And same thing, there's little buttons right here to be able to pop these plugs out. I have to do it with 2 hands. Lastly, there's a metal clip right here that you have to just pop free with a screwdriver to be able to get the wiring totally free and dangling. So give me a quick second. Now have all the wiring separated for our Clockspring assembly. Last thing we need to do is pop the 4 screws out that hold this whole thing in place. Now you got a screw here, screw here, screw here, and a screw here, just regular Phillips screws. Now one thing you need to make note of before you do anything is having your wheels straight. Now if you hadn't done that already, and I failed to mention that, you could always just put your steering column, your steering wheel back on the shaft and just straighten your wheels out. So this whole assembly is actually situated where the arrows line up on your Clockspring. This thing is 6 full turns from left all the way to the right side. You want to be dead centered on that. So go ahead, straighten that out. Okay, we have our old Clockspring removed, so we'll no longer be needing this thing anymore. Our new Clockspring, or new used Clockspring as stated, has 6 full turns. Let me get it bottomed out on the right side again so we could demonstrate this. See, we're at the full end of that turn. You have timing marks basically to help you make note of that. But if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then 6. And that's as far as that'll go. So to get this thing ready to go, you got to get this thing dead center. It even gives you instructions on here. Get your wheels straight. Rotate 3 turns from the left end. Well, we're on the left end. And align the marks. So go 1, 2, and 3. And then we could go ahead and put this thing back in place. So we could go ahead and put our screws in and get all our wiring situated. Okay, with our Clockspring bolted down, everything else is pretty much reverse of removing it. Go ahead and snap our wire bundle in place with this little setup right here. And then we have to snap all our wiring back together and hook the assemblies underneath to these metal tabs right here to hold all our wiring secure. And then we can go ahead and bolt up our dash cover, our bottom dash cover, and the little fuse box access cover back in place, and go ahead and install our steering column covers just as well. Get all that bolted down, and then we can go ahead and look at the steering column next. Putting our steering wheel back on is not as straightforward as blindly putting the wheel on and torquing the nut down. There's 3 notches you need to pay attention to that coincide with 3 little nipples on the clock spring. You have to, let me go ahead and get this in position. You have to line up those notches with the little nipples. So let's see, let's get this seated. Here we go. So when you turn the steering wheel, that clock spring moves in unison, indicating that our little notches are lined up with the nipples on the clock spring. With that all done, I can go ahead, put this nut back on. The torque for this nut is like 26 foot-pounds, so that's weak sauce enough that you could just simply put your socket on here and just torque the thing down to whatever your arm is comfortable with, which is probably going to be way greater than 26 foot-pounds. So with that, there we are. Get it on there nice and snug. Thing's not going anywhere. Then lastly, plug that plug back in there, that we can move on and get our airbag placed back in there. Now, I'm still not going to plug our airbag up because I don't like these doggone things. But if you don't have any problem with spontaneously combusting airbags, feel free to plug that back up. Me, I'm just going to remount the airbag, get it all snugged down so we can conclude this little setup. Okay, we have our steering wheel and column and everything put back together. Airbag, access covers, dash panel, everything's in place. Go ahead and turn our turn signal on and see that we have working turn signals in the front and the back, and front. Our headlights are also working, as is our windshield wipers. All right, there it is. We're all done installing our new Clockspring turn signal switch assembly. Not really too hard. Got everything working as it should. So we're going to end the video here. And until next time, as usual, hit the like button. Likes are free. Subscribe. We appreciate the subs and it helps us get on the map even more. Share the video. Check out TikTok, website, all that good stuff. And I'll catch you later. I'm going to move on to some other stuff I got to do around here. I'm out.